And here we are, Emily Miller.
Hey, Kate Richburg. How the heck are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Oh, I forgot to bring my other screen up here with me. Darn it. Oh, well. You have to feed me questions as they come along. I'm sure there'll be a few.
I will. There
What's that?
will be. What's that?
What's that?
I dropped my lotion.
Oh, talking about old lady hands in the background?
Yeah, I'm like,
Right?
that's got to happen. Well, we have so many people here, Emily.
Sorry, I don't have another screen with me, you guys. So let me just say, blanket hello, blanket welcome, blanket have a really happy holidays, everybody, and enjoy yourselves. Take a little time for yourself. Do some beading, do some baking, do some eating, all those things that rhyme.
That's what I'm telling you. Well, there's so many comments, so I'm going to get to the comments. Let me do my due diligence by saying, I'm going to cover Emily for a second. You all know where to find us, our Facebook group, our Instagram page, our Pinterest. Hit that like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. We really, really appreciate all of your follows, your shares, your social shares. It really helps people find our little old bead business all over the world. You can reach out on social anytime at beadshop.com. And of course, you can shoot us an email at info@beadshop.com. There are, Emily, let's see, everyone is loving this project. Janice is saying that she had so much fun with Emily when she was planning this project. It's a winner.
Well, I gotta tell you, I went real deep on the variety. So sorry, JP. I know this was a lot of moving parts.
There's a lot here, right? It's going to be fun. I'm really, I'm excited to see it all.
I had a vision for this, and it came out. So I'm very happy.
You sure did. You have 2 samples that you're going to share with us. They're over on the channel, and or on the website. You can find them here. Janice linked it. It's the Super Spiral Peyote. They're also, if you're watching live, they're linked on the first on the homepage of the website. Faye is here.
Hey, Faye.
Wishing us happy everything to you, my dear friend. Gosh, everyone's here. It's great to have everyone here.
Awesome.
So, why don't we get right into it, Em? Okay. Yes, talk to me, Goose.
I want to say first that this was an inspiration project. This was a project that I saw something else and I was very inspired by it. And as you know, I'm not really great at following directions. Sometimes I can manage it. Sometimes I can't. That's why I don't do kits, is because I don't want to do anybody else's stuff. Some of that. It's maybe a third. My attention span is poor. I bought 1 million seed beads once to do an amulet bag project, and I got about 4 rows into it and went, I don't really like this. It's not fun. So I just don't really do other people's stuff very often. But I have to say, I'm gonna flash a book for you guys.
Here, I'm gonna solo you.
I love having a book around to reference, and there are 2 books by Carol Wilcox Wells. The first one I don't have in my hand, but if you look for her online, Carol Wilcox Wells, you'll find that she has 2 books. Art and Elegance of Beadweaving is the second book, and here's what's on the back cover. So just want to kind of give you a moment to look at that. This is a bracelet, and it's the same spiral we're doing today with some other little variations. I love a primary. Don't get me wrong. A primary opaque bead is right on my street. I'm staying in my lane right there. But this is such an awesome project, and I don't think I ever got all the beads together for it. But you can, and you can. I have a friend, a dear old friend from back in the day, who made it in black and white, so that would be really dynamic as well. And I know that this is not a particularly unique kind of a project. I've seen people do it in a bunch of different variations. But I got a wild hair one day and started thinking about doing this just as a pendant, something that you could wear and have it be kind of a centerpiece and a focal. And I really do like working with the leathers that we use. And I like to I tend to be the simple person. I like things kind of on the not too busy, not too fussy side, although this is Pendant has plenty of busyness to it. And so I wanted to work specifically with our thinner point 0.5 leather. And, the point 0.5 leather it's a lovely material. It's just not as sturdy and strong as I would kind of like it to be. And so it doesn't sort of hold up terribly strongly on its own. But again, this is all kind of comes together when Kate suddenly shows up with these really freaking cool
I love those clasps.
I the minute I saw these, I said, we can cover these with beadwork, but we can also use them just like this with multiple strands of leather. And
Gosh, they
I'll
so
show
look
you how
nice.
I engineered this. And you could continue with this peyote stitch right up onto the clasp until it meets up. But the fact that these are magnetic and they're so simple, they really strike a chord for me, Kate. So
Oh, I'm so glad you like them. And you know what I also liked, Emily, is they are so sturdy, right?
they every time Janice and I were just talking about this yesterday, kind of about innovation in bead findings and innovation in
Mhm,
jewelry making. Sometimes there are needs in a industry, and there are people out there who are trying to satisfy those needs, which everybody wants to have their own project and be a record breaker and a world leader and take the town by storm. But I think sometimes kind of taking into account all the things that someone would want to do with a clasp like this, uh,
mhm.
they really have done a nice job with this because it's very multifunctional. We could
It
do a lot
really
of
is.
different stringing projects with this clasp. And I wanted to use multiple strands of leather because, again, that point 0.5 is not as sturdy as I kind of like it to be.
Mhm.
But with this clasp, a little bit of beadwork, oh my gosh, it's just like a match made in heaven.
Oh, I'm
Um,
so glad you like it. I really loved it. And when I grabbed it, I'm all, we have to have that. And I knew that you would, um, as Janice likes to say, take it to the next level.
we could certainly bead up onto this clasp if we wanted to and have no problem doing that. The point 0.5 leather also makes a stunning braid. So there was a project floating around on Instagram about making a bracelet out of wire that's very similar looking to this. And Kate and I both went, "Oh yeah, I got to do that." I mean, it's like when you're going to run to the studio and like make it today. And
That's
so
really
as I
cool.
was playing around with this point 0.5, I thought, wow, what did this look like if I braided it? And it makes this really kind of glamorous looking flat braid that, again, this is a material that we already have. And finding a new kind of feel for it or a new kind of look for it, it's really nice to be able to do that without having to go source something extra special. Um,
Mhm.
so I did use quite a bit of leather. I think I ordered 8 yards, 7 or 8 yards of it, which it seems like a lot, but we're going to do 12 strands. So the 12 strands give the beaded spiral bead a full feeling so it doesn't move around on here too much. It moves a little bit and you can push it around if you need to, but it kind of centers it and keeps it in one place, which I like. Filling up the whole of a bead gives
Mhm.
you a little bit of sturdiness inside here. Cindy Brooke, I see that it's a little different from Cellini Spiral. So we're just using peyote, straight tubular peyote, with a variety of sizes of beads. We're working 15 through 8
It's
plus
so exciting.
2 millimeter crystal from the Czech crystal in there. The 2 millimeter crystal also, when you buy it, it seems like very little amount in a box, but it's plenty for this project. And we're going to do about 40 rows or so. And the
And
way
you're talking about the True Choose M, is that
the true
right?
twos, yes, sorry. The true twos, as you count, you can just count those true twos as you go around the spiral, and that'll give you your row count. So it's real easy to
Mhm.
pick up on those. Also, do a little editing with the true twos. Occasionally, they're a little bit long or a little bit short, and occasionally, I have a little rough edge. So just take a good look when you're putting those on your needle that you don't see one that has a flaw. I didn't use Fireline for this. I didn't need to. I went ahead and used the KO thread, gave me enough tension with this. And I really had a great time doing it.
Oh, it's just luscious. As you and I used to say, it's luscious Jackson.
Yes, it is indeed a juicy situation
It's
here,
so good.
right? And this is just a few, maybe a couple, 3 hours of stitching. It's really not that hard.
Oh, I like
It
that
does
story.
take a little brain bend to kind of remember what you're doing each time as you pick up and add a bead, because you're going to add it in a really specific order and in a specific way. So, moving onwards, we're going to move over to looking at, and I have, for like 2 weeks, I have had beads laid out like this on my work table, and I've worked around them. Um,
Huh?
I didn't want to mess up my plan. Here's my Miranda. We picked
Oh,
two traditional names for mermaids because I thought this kind of went with the beach.
oh, I love it. That's the
So,
inspiration. I was going to ask you about the inspiration behind the name.
yeah, Miranda and Alana were, if you Google mermaid names, those two come up. So
All right,
um,
I'm in.
a fun way to kind of find out some new names. So this is the color spread that I use, and I put this in the handout in order. So you can use the same one as you like. You can also just sub in whatever bead you want from your stash. But I would, if I were you, I would start with an 11 and end with an 11. Okay, we're going to have 11s, 8s, the true 2s, more 11s, then 15s, and then an 11 again. So when you
And
string your first strand of beads to start this peyote, tubular peyote, it's going to look
ah,
like this.
I see. So you have them laid out there, Emily, in the size order. Is that correct?
I have them laid out in the stitching order.
The stitch order. Sorry, that's what I meant. I meant the stitch order. So
Yes,
would you mind going from left to right with that little
sure,
sample? I'm sure you were going to do that next.
sure, sure. So
Um,
let me find the Alana one here. Here we go. So we have, and I don't have the names in front. Oh, I can get the names. Hold on.
and they're on the list on
Yes,
the
they are
material
on the handout. Yeah.
the handout and the materials list.
So when I get my beads from Beadshop, the tubes come in a little plastic bag with a label on the outside. I take that label off and I put it on the tube because it does have the name and the number.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
that's really
it doesn't
handy.
number. So it always kind of takes me just a minute to get myself organized here. Yeah, that's right. And here, and here, and here. I also put these in color, in kind of my own unique color order. And my idea behind these color orders was that I wasn't putting a bead right next to another bead that was the same. I wanted to have
Mm,
some variation. So, for instance, when I picked up this pink and I have this kind of matte opaly kind of cream, I wanted to put something in between it that was different, right?
mhm.
So each bead has a little bit of gets to shine a little bit, right? So starting over here, we have 2024, 11, 2024,
So that's an 11 out there.
matte opaque light. I think that's a matte opaque light rose.
Mhm,
And then this is the 15, and that's the 645,
mhm.
which is, I think that's silver lined alabaster paint.
Oh,
Right.
yeah. 645.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
And then this is the 15 2023, which is the matte opaque blush.
Mhm.
High on my list here is anything gold or 190.
I do.
15 4202. This is the silver line crystal or gilt line crystal. Sorry, 1551. And then this guy is kind of a sleeper. I gotta say, in the tube, it's not very inspiring looking, but when you stitch with it, ooh, it's really pretty. And it really is a nice color. So it's right in here.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
in there, right?
Is
It,
that that's also an alabaster, isn't it? What's the number on it?
this is the Duracoat Silver Line dyed topaz gold.
Oh,
It's
and is that a 15?
nope, 11 42 43.
Okay, so there's an 11 there. Okay.
Here's an 11 and ivory pearl Ceylon,
Okay.
right? And this is 11 591. And this guy, the Duracoat Galvanized Dark Coral, which is an 8.
That's an ADOT. Okay.
4209. This guy is, I got to tell you, this one's a little bit of a splurge, but it's really worth it. It is the
It is.
yummiest of the 24 karat gold, yellow gold lined opal. This is
Yeah, it's
196.
delicious.
It's delicious, super delicious. And my favorite of the True Twos is the Crystal California Gold Rush. I love that this has got a little bit of kind of a black base to it. It's not all gold, and it's got a little bit of copper, and it's got a little bit of a bronzy tone, but it's got kind of a black aspect to it. So that's
Yeah, I love that California Gold Rush color.
really clearly in here, right? The
So cool.
that Gold Rush really kind of pops out. And then the last one I have here in the 11s is the dark beige Ceylon. I've always sort of liked the Ceylon. This is 11593. So these are all on the handout as well. And so let me get those out of the road a little bit.
So this is your stringing order. So you've got an 11, 1, 2, 3, 4 15s, 2 11s, and 2 8s, the true 2, and then you end with the 11-aught.
Correct. Because the 11-aughts are going to come around and meet each other. Right?
Gotcha.
So this is what the strand looks like when you are ready to start. I'm going to start a fresh one for you because I know everybody kind of wants to see that. And remember, with peyote stitch, the first beads you put on are really the first 2 rows.
Right.
So that's why we're putting on 2 of each. Just want to let that sink in for a second. Because these are the first 2 rows. We're putting on 2 of each. We're going to tie this in a circle. And then we're going to start beading. So the first rows will push up and down, right? So you'll have that spiral from the immediate beginning. You know, if you ever get fluxumed by starting tubular peyote or any peyote, you can use what we used to call a dummy row. 2 or 3. That means just pick up any bead. You don't have to worry about sizes. Just start with an 11. Start the tube, get it rolling, then start adding in your beads, your other sizes or your other colors. And as you do that, you just ignore that dummy row until you get to the very end. Everything is done. Then you can cut your thread, pull off the dummy row, and it's as if nothing happened. It's like a selvage. But it's a place to kind of get started if you get struggling with having the beginnings of a spiral, beginnings of a pattern. That dummy row can really help a lot. Okay, so these are what they look like before they get strung. And I went for about 2 complete spirals. So I would still continue. Let's see if I get it the right way around. I would still continue until I completed a full another spiral. So about another ½ an inch or so on these to get completed, right? But you could stop here. You could make 3 or 4 more spirals. You could make a bracelet if you wanted. You could continue this and loop it to itself, and it would be great. Okay, you probably have enough materials here. Oh, maybe to make half a dozen. Maybe with maybe a few more true twos. Yeah, you'd have to end up. These are 100 per package, so that would give you at least 2.5. So I would say you'd have enough for that, but you have enough seed beads to kind of keep going. And if you don't want to add a true 2, you can add another 8 in there, and that will be fine.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, absolutely. The true 2s are just a tiny bit longer, bigger than our regular 8s, but it's a small enough difference that it won't matter, right? I did use my favorite KO, dark gray. You can really use, a color if you think that this is going to show a whole bunch more. You can certainly use a different color. Maybe the beige with this Miranda one. And you could do a dark blue if you wanted to with the, Alana. No, Miranda. And Alana, in the blues, you could do a dark blue, or a dark green might be kind of fun, just for kicks and grins. Kate, I think I'm going to change over to, let's Speaking of changing color ways, I'm going to
Okay.
change to Alana. I feel
Okay.
like it's a little easier to see these darker beads.
Sure.
And if anybody has questions about that, please, or it is not seeing this correctly, please let me know. Later on today, we will, in a little bit, we will do the other half of this necklace clasp, and I'll show you how I did the braiding. And so you'll need one of these. I believe it's the 4mm one,
Okay.
guys. And I like a little Ceylon. And there's a trick to that little Ceylon that's going to come up in a minute. You'll be like,
Oh, good. I'm excited to see that.
because Ceylon's such a great thread. I mean,
It is.
you
It
know.
is. Agreed.
So typical length of thread that I would use for this, again, about 1 yard to 1.5 yards. And because I'm doing this on the broadcast, I'm going to only cut a shorter piece. It's just easier to manage a shorter piece. And I would end and begin new thread the same way we do with other peyote stitches or other seed bead stitches. Leave my old needle dangling, make a new thread, bury in the new thread, get it coming out where the old thread is, do some work, and then bury off the old thread. So same exact way I do with all my other tools. So I'm going to go ahead and put my thread on my 12 needle, get that threaded. I do like a little beeswax if you have it around. I think it just makes the fibers of the thread kind of hang together, and it's, I don't know, it's part of what I do.
Yeah,
So
it's a good ritual.
Yeah. In this case, I'm not going to put a stopper bead on because I know that I'm going to end this thread. So you can do a couple things. You can put a little tape on the end if you're worried about the beads coming off. You can use, I think, just grab one of these without bumping everything that we're doing today. Oh, it's down at the bottom of the bin. A little bead stopper if you want to
Sure.
on your thread to kind of just keep those first few beads on. So we're going to pick up 2 of each of these beads. And, oh, you know what? I think I have one out of order here. And truly, the order that we're going in, is that right? Yeah. The order that we're going in would not matter so much. The reason I chose this order to work this, and I got to say, I've got a bunch of little samples to go in the sample jar from this project because I started it a bunch of times. The reason I'm doing it in this order is that I just found the 11 to be the easiest one to start and finish with. Okay. So you can do this in any order. I think I'm actually in order on this guy. So I noticed a few things with a few different colors of beads, and I will show you this one because I'm coming up on him. He's kind of a little problematic. So this is a transparent 15. It is 2405, transparent teal. And if we compare him in size, he's a little different from some of the others. I found a little bit of thin ones and a little bit of thick ones. So again, take a little look at your beads, kind of aim for the sweet spot in the middle. If they're extremely thin or extremely thick, just put them to the side. You could use it for fringe. You could use it for something else. But with stitching like this, or if I were stitching in making like loom, then I would do the same thing. So one of the things I did with my layout was I actually moved my beginning and end beads together. So this is actually 2 11s here. So this is my last 15, and I moved my my last 11 over here, and I'll show you why in a minute. Very sneaky, tricky, right? So there's my first 2 rows, and I'm going to take my bead stopper off, grab my tail. Leaving a tail of thread is kind of it's a personal matter. I like to make sure I leave a tail of thread that is long enough. This one's maybe about 5 inches long enough to put a needle on and weave it back in, right? So I did a little surgeon's knot there for the first knot, and I'm just following it up with a regular knot. So again, with peyote in the round, tubular peyote, not peyote in the round, tubular peyote, we can go counterclockwise or clockwise. It really doesn't matter. So this is another beauty of actually ending and beginning with 11. Doesn't really matter which direction you particularly feel comfortable going. I'm actually going to go counterclockwise with my stitching, and it's just the way I do it. I can also build up or down, but I have to pick one, and I tend to build up. But it's up to you. You don't have to do it up. You can do it down if it's more comfortable. Whatever turns you on. So my tail of thread is coming out between 2 11s. And I find it pretty indispensable to have something in the middle of my beads. Kate will recognize this instantly.
That's correct.
This is a Le Pen, which I like quite a bit. That is a good size for this diameter.
Those days when we could go to Flax and grab a Le Pen.
Do you understand how much I miss going to Flax?
I understand. I was thinking about that the other day, going,
you know,
man,
like
I wish we could go
in
to
this
Flax
case,
right
the pencil is a little bit thin. I was going to grab a Sharpie, fine point Sharpie. Do I have one? I almost always have one. Here's a micron pen.
I think I've got an end of a paintbrush that might work.
Yeah, I mean, find a couple of pieces of writing utensils. I think the end of the fine point Sharpie is actually even a little slightly better fit than the pen.
Yeah, nice.
So when we tie this circle of beads, you want to tie it pretty firmly, but remember that those beads are going to jog up and down a little bit. So if you're a tiny bit loose, you're okay. A tiny bit too tight, and you may find this first few stitches a wee bit struggly, as I like to say, right? So here's the thing with tubular peyote. There's 2 points that we're going to come across here. One of them is what bead we're going to add in what order. And our needle and thread have to be coming out of a bead. Right now, when I tied the knot, they are not coming out of a bead. They're in between 2 beads. So that's different. So I need to first put my needle through a bead. And I'm going to go through that guy right there to the right of my knot. And I'm going to come out. Okay. So whatever bead my thread is emerging from, that's going to be the bead I'm going to pick up.
Oh, gotcha.
So if you do it the other way, if you do whatever bead you're going into, you can do that too, but your spiral will go the other direction and it will be fine. But this way, in this case, this is what I want to do. This is the bead my thread's coming out of. That's the bead I'm going to pick up. So that's going to be another one of these, right? I'm going to skip a bead. That's going to be the same color in this instance. Pass through the next bead and pull that up. Actually, the Sharpie is the pen. The Le Pen is close, but the Sharpie is a little bit better.
The Sharpie is the right one.
Sharpie end should be the right one. So now I'm coming out of an 8. Oh, and I can see I made a mistake in my stringing pattern, but that's okay. I'm coming out of an 8, and I'm going to pick up an 8 and skip a bead and pass through the next bead. Okay. So whatever bead my thread is emerging from, that's the bead I'm going to pick up. These 2 8s were side by side in my tray, and I messed up. So this bead is out of order. It should be a different one. Okay. I'm going to skip over, and I'm going to pass through that true 2. So now I'm coming out the true 2, pick up a true 2, skip over a bead, pass through the next bead. Okay. Even after this first row is done, you'll start to see this pattern begin to emerge. But one of the nice things about having your beads kind of laid out in order is you can double check yourself. Right? Coming out of that matte green bead, coming out of that number 190, which is one of the only beads I know by heart.
I know, 190, man.
Oh, you know what, you guys, I really did make an error here. There's a big bad error. This is why it fit on this pen and it's not the right one. I'm going to Start again. This is too
Yeah.
big a stringing error,
Yes.
unfortunately.
So,
Um,
Emily, tell us what the stringing error was, would you?
I put 4 on here when I should have put 2. We were
Gotcha.
talking about that teal one,
Mm-hmm. And
and
we were so excited.
I was so excited. But, that's the way it goes. So when I make a big error like that and it's too far back, I will just cut that, put it aside, and come back to it.
Yeah, cut your losses.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. This doesn't
Yeah.
take that long. I think I just got so excited about talking about that teal bead being such a pain in my rear end that I once. It's been known to happen,
It
right?
happens to the best of us, Em.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm glad it was um
It was early on.
it was early on and it was an easy one to fix. Plus I got to fix that other 8 problem that I had too. So
Yeah,
that's making lemonade here out of lemons. So
that's right. And what I'm noticing, Emily, when you lay out your beads like this,
mm,
you can also really see if your color palette works for you.
absolutely.
You know,
I don't think that this project really has a color palette that wouldn't work. Again, I did separate beads that were sort of close in color by
mm-hmm.
something else, right? My metallics are kind of far apart. You know,
Right.
it actually makes it easier on the eyes, but it makes it show more that you've done those, made those choices.
Yeah, no, and I like it. I like the you're kind of able to see, like you said, are your metallics in the right place?
Mhm.
Um, because they do look different. Like you were saying,
Now
they
it
look
fits
different
better
in the
on the
tube.
Le Pen.
What's that?
Now it fits better on the Le Pen. I was
Oh,
wondering,
there you go. Now you know it's right.
like, all right. So once again, go through the bead that's just to the right of the knot, right? Pull that through. Pick up whatever bead I'm coming out of. Pick up a bead, skip a bead, pass through the next bead. And so having your beads in this kind of fanned out palette, it does make the stitching a lot smoother. I got to tell you, the first one I didn't do this. And I thought, oh God, this is going to be a lot of explaining on the internet. Oh, but doing it in this bead order, which you wouldn't have to normally do, you could lay
Right.
it out in any old order, wouldn't matter a bit. This does speed the process along considerably. Right. And I just look and see what bead I'm coming out of, pick up the next bead. So when you get down to the 15s,
And Emily, can you go maybe a little more center frame and yeah, maybe just a little closer? That's great.
okay, we get
Perfect.
down to those 15s, boy, sometimes that getting in between them is a little struggly. It's just
Yeah.
taking time. I did not feel the need to move down a needle size to a 13 at any point. I was just fine in the 12s.
That's
And
what you're using a 12 right here.
yeah, yeah, very happy with that. I think if I was using a 10, it would feel a little bit stiff.
Mm-hmm.
I might not have as much flexibility to kind of get through things. So,
Mm-hmm.
hi, Le Pen, you're not supposed to catch the thread like that. Thank you very much.
So essentially, Emily, this is simply tubular peyote done with a variety of different shapes of beads. Is that correct?
A variety of different sizes, really.
A variety of different sizes is what I meant.
So
Correct.
here I am. I'm coming around to the end of this row. And the end of this row is this beautiful metallic blue teal. So I'm coming out of that color bead. I'm picking up that bead on my needle. I'm going to skip a bead, pass through a bead. And at this point, I have finished the row. So we have to do something called a step up. So what that means is to pass through the last bead and also the next up bead, right? Carefully planned to be a light color so everybody could see it. Because right now the row is finished and there's nowhere to add a bead to. I have to
Mhm.
get to the point where I can pick up a bead, skip a bead, and pass through the next bead. So here I'm passing through that bead, that step up bead. I'm
Mhm.
coming out of that 11. I'm going to pick up an 11. I'm going to skip a bead, which happens to be an 8, and pass through the next bead.
And
Right?
so the bead that you're picking up, Emily, are you matching it to the bead that's quote unquote below it?
No, I'm picking
You're
up
not.
the bead, the color of the bead that I'm coming out of. Whatever
It's
bead my
coming out of. Gotcha.
um,
Okay,
that's the bead
always.
coming out always.
Okay,
This
gotcha.
whole shooting match
Gotcha.
the whole way around, right?
And I'm looking at the handout. That's pretty clear, folks, in the handout. I know sometimes it's a little hard to follow on the screen or whatever, but Emily's visual instructions coupled by the handout she made, you're going to be in good shape.
Yep. Oh, I almost made that mistake. I was looking at that silver bead and I thought that's the next one, and it's not. Pick up a bead, skip a bead, pass through the next bead. And as you work your way around, you'll start to see that spiral kind of developing, all those beads kind of lining up on a row, going around and around and around. Okay? So let me get through this. We'll get to that step up again,
Yeah.
right? Oh gosh. Even I do it sometimes. So again, doing things with patterns, doing things where you follow things through, you gotta figure out your way, your method of keeping things in order, right? And for me, having them laid out in that order really helps a lot. Pick up a bead, skip a bead, pass through the next bead. I need to lower my camera a little bit, I think, Kate, because
Oh,
I'm
okay.
resting my arms on the table to be able to keep my hands steady.
Sure.
My camera's a little far away. There we go. What bead am I coming out of again? Ah, yeah, that guy.
So essentially, friends, don't forget for that first row that you're putting on, it's actually the first 2 rows. That's what Emily was talking about when we were doubling up the beads. And then from that, after those first 2 rows are on, from there on out, you just put the bead on to match the one that you're coming out of. And that's like you're paying it forward. That's why it spirals, because you're putting the bead, the
So
bead
here I am
position
at the
in
end
the
of this
middle.
row again, and I'm ready to go through a bead, finishing the row. And I'm
Mhm.
going to do this all in one step this time because this is how I would normally do it for myself. So can you see how my needle is passing? Wait, let me get a pointer that's not my big fat finger. You see how my needle is passing through this bead.
Mhm.
That's the last bead of the row. And I'm going to go through the next bead at the same time, all in one step. And then I'm ready to go again, around and around and around and around. Keep going till you have about 40 rows, right? So here's the next this is what it starts to look like as you get a little bit more. This guy's in progress as well, right? All my beads kind of spiraling around,
Mhm.
going right around and around. And you'll see it start to kind of deform. And that deformity is what's going to give it that spiral. And that's what you're kind of looking for, is having it deform like that. And it'll look really weird at first. So keep going. Keep going until you have a few rows. So this is how many rows? 8 rows. If I count any one bead in the spiral, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, this 6 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows. Okay. So really, I've only done 4 rows after the first string of beads. So not very much time for it to get to something you can actually hold in your hand. You don't have to leave on that pen. I use a pen or some kind of a form to work around, really just for my first few rows. It doesn't take very long to kind of come to the end. Now, when you get to the end and you're done with your spiral, wherever you decide to end it off, I like to pass my needle and thread all the way through the rows again. So in this case, we're actually going to have the um, cord of our necklace running through. And since we have to go through in and out, it's nice to have that little first row, last row be a little bit more sturdy. It's quite fine to go through all the beads one more time and then go ahead and weave in any tails. You go back to the
Mhm.
beginning, weave in that tail, and
Mhm.
you're done. So let me talk to you about those cords. I think that cord, doing these multiple strands with the, what are we calling this clasp, Kate? Is this called a bullet? It feels like
I
a bullet.
think it's a barrel. Let
Barrel?
me look. It's a magnetic. I'll tell you exactly what the clasp is called here momentarily.
I don't seem to have the empty baggie of it.
Hang on. It's called a smooth barrel clasp
Ah,
is what it's called.
it feels like a little bullet or a little capsule kind
Yeah.
of shape, right? So to get all these strands to gather together, what I did was I used a little bit of a whip stitch or a silk wrap, was what Beadshop likes to call it. I actually learned how to do whip stitching when I was in high school, and I had a very interesting teacher who taught us a lot of things that we used in agriculture and horseback riding and a bunch of
I was
stuff.
going to say, was she your FFA teacher?
Yes, she was my FFA teacher,
Yeah,
Miss
that's
Nair, who
right.
I'm back in
FFA.
contact with, which is kind of incredible. She was really a great teacher and a lot of fun. Really a lot of fun. So I'm going to show you what I would normally do to this, and I'm going to make this one be unbraided. Um, but you know what? Let me show you the braid first, because this is going to get all glued into place, and then I'm not going to have enough thread to show you the braid. But typical braiding, I would go ahead and secure the leather into the end of this clasp. And I did 12 strands, which for regular flat braids, like you would braid someone's hair, means you start off with 3 groups of strands. And so this is just done with separating that 12 into 3 groups of 4, right? And I really just did this with kind of light pressure and a light tension. Because these are magnetic, you might actually be able to walk up to a metal shelf or a doorknob or something and kind of stick this to it to give you a little something to hang on to. But I really did it flat in my hands with not much help from any accessories. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but just laid those strands flat and oh yeah, this would have been a great idea for the temperature project.
Yes, it
Oh, I
would.
like that. I like that.
It'll be a contender for yours for next year. I have
Yeah.
my temperature project for next year almost ready to go. I've got a little bit of catching up for 2023, but we're gonna talk about the temperature project coming up very soon here, folks. So
Yeah, I think are we scheduled to have sort of a year-end wrap up, you and I, Kate? I kind of feel
yeah,
like
I think so. We're gonna do. I know Drea and I are doing something that's a year-end wrap up, and then I think you and I are doing something that's a year-end wrap up.
right.
We have so many year-end wrap ups. It's not even funny,
Well, what else are you going to do in the week between Christmas and New Year's? Come on,
right?
right? So that
Think
braid
about
really
it.
comes together. See how easy that is? I mean, it's braiding like this is super easy. So you
It's
could make
really
this.
nice.
Doesn't that look good? I mean, it would make a great little bracelet just on its own, right?
Yeah. Look at
Not
that
much
closure is so good. Now,
fun.
Em, there's a question while you're braiding.
Sure. I'm just going to do a couple more. This is a braid you'd braid for hair. So you move one over the center and then the other over the center, right?
Yeah, it
Like
looks nice with all of those
strands.
strands. It looks nice. So
Yeah.
Stephanie's asking if you can tell her what the difference is between the Cellini spiral and this one. Um,
Only difference I see is that year one uses a lot more beads, especially 15s. I feel like Cellini spiral is not a traditional peyote stitch. And you know what? I don't have it at my fingertips, Steph. If you will put that question on the bead group,
yeah.
I will be happy to do a little research and get back to you.
Hmm.
Um, the I love answering questions on the bead group, and I sometimes go into far more detail.
I love that. And if you have questions ever, folks, speaking of the bead table, our Facebook group, if you have questions specifically for Emily or
Yeah,
I
just
or
tag me in
Jamie,
there.
Yeah,
And
just tag us so we know, because sometimes I don't see all of the posts. I'll go back and it'll be like weeks later and I'll see something that says, Kate, what would you do? And I wasn't tagged and I'll be all, oh, sorry. That was from like 4 weeks ago. So make sure and tag us if you have a question.
so I'm unbraiding this just because I wanted to have one of these with the unbraided leather too as an option. And I cut, whether making the braid or the straight strands, I think I cut these at about 20 inches and did my best to kind of make them all the same. But typically, if I was going to do that braid, I'd go ahead and braid the whole thing, get to the end, I'd put a little a clamp on there, right? And then I'd do a little silk wrap. And we used to do whip stitching because we were learning how to rope calves, and you had to make a tie off strand, a little piece of rope that you tied around the calves' feet. I know that sounds very random for me at this day and age in my life, but that was what we were doing.
Yeah, no, you grew up, we both grew up in the country. I love it. Margaret's saying here, where's my boots and saddle soap, Em? I had the Johnny West action figures and my Briar ponies. Kate, you build our corral and we can all play together.
Excellent. I can go into the next room and get my Briar horses out if we need.
That's right. I didn't have Briar ponies, but my neighbors across the street did. And that was the only thing that I wanted to play with when I went over there.
They were really my favorites, and I would get one for my birthday. We would go to the hobby shop.
Yeah,
where they had them. So a wrapped end or a whipped end, a silk wrapped end or a whipped end, same process that Kate and Janice do for their choices in different projects. I'm going to basically make a loop in my thread, and I did choose a dark thread here again for visibility on the screen. I think when I did this originally, I used this sort of silvery gray kind of color, off-white. I don't know, platinum maybe that's what that's called. I don't know. But I'm going to cover this up with beadwork anyway, so it's not going to matter. So you make a loop, lay it down, and then bring the long end up and start to wind. And this is a place where I am going to wind pretty firmly. Now, one of the things that I always have a problem with is under my thumb where I started to wrap, there's a little extra thread. But if you find the appropriate end in the loop, it's not that one, it's this one, and pull that up a little bit, so making the loop a little bit bigger, you'll tidy up your tail end a little bit. Does that make sense? Wherever you start holding it and start winding, sometimes there's a little bit of loose thread there. So before I get too far up my wind, I will stop and kind of pull up on the loop to get rid of that extra, to get it nice and snug at the very beginning. And I'm just winding. This feels very much like making bullion. I have to tell you.
It does, yes. Wind.
It's just the same kind of process. And here's my wraps here, nice and tight. I was going to grab a ruler and say that I think I suggested this was about a 1/4 inch or so of wraps, and that's just about a 1/4 inch. Because this is going to hold all your strands together, and you want to be able to trim next to it, and it's going to be what we're going to glue into the clasp as well. So it's good to make sure it's there. So I put my end through the loop, and I'm going to pull that back into that wrap, right? So that it's secure. So we did the exact same things when we were making tie-offs in high school. And maybe about 9th grade, 10th grade, maybe.
All of you folks in your beautiful velvet FFA jackets.
Oh no, they're corduroy, and they
looked like, what are they? Blue, I think.
Kate, I have mine, so
I would hope that you did.
I don't know what I was looking at it the other day. It's in a trunk, and I was looking at it, going, "Do I need to get rid of this?"
For those of you who aren't familiar, FFA stands for Future Farmers of America, and in rural communities, I think it was a nationwide.
It is a nationwide thing.
It wasn't just California. But it was kind of like 4-H or things like that. But FFA, our high school had a really strong FFA unit because we had rodeo and everything. Did you have rodeo?
We had there were different competitions that we went to, and so Future Farmers of America was really trying to train the next generation of farmers.
Yeah.
So we did bookkeeping, and we did things like, learning about how to irrigate fields, and we picked every
Mhm.
kind of crop, and we butchered animals, and we learned how to light smudge pots. And I mean, we just did a million different things that were related to farming.
Yeah.
And I was into animals and horses, and so I went into FFA. That was sort
Yeah.
of the natural place to go. And my dad had a walnut ranch, a walnut orchard too.
Yeah.
So I'm going to grab a little super glue, and if I'm lucky, this guy's not. This is the gel. It doesn't goop out on you, which is really nice. I'm going to
Nice.
spray all around here.
So you recommend the Zap glue for that, Em?
Yeah, I like the Zap glue for
Yeah,
this.
me
I
too.
feel like it kind of makes a firm, hard bond, and that's kind of what
Yeah.
I'm looking for, right? This is
Yeah.
nice because it rounds itself and makes that circle. And I always have a little moment of like, oh my God, where's the other side of the clasp? It's on this end of the thing, you know?
I love it how so many people are chiming in that they were in FFA, also in 4-H.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. FFA was good fun. We did all kinds of competitions. Like we learned how to judge animals, which I know that sounds really super random, but we were judging animals
animal
for
judging is it's
conformation
yeah,
and breed, and did they fit the breed
yeah,
specific.
breed standard. Yeah,
Yep. So
I think that's awesome.
luckily I can just trim off those extra tails of thread. They're all gone. I'm actually going to grab a bigger cutter because I want to cut the rest of this leather too. And I feel fairly confident that I've got enough glue on here. I'm not so worried about it. Fairly confident. I'll add a little extra. This is all going to glue into a nice, hard, firm mass. And typically I would let this dry. For myself, I just put it aside for the evening and come back to it the next day. But because we're doing all this stuff kind of live, I'm going to come in with my flush cutters, and I'm going to cut off all that leather hoo-ha. It's all
And
gone.
that's a really nice trick, you guys. If you're using this clasp on anything, really, like if you're, I don't know, doing a multi-strand of any kind, it's a nice way to just utilize this clasp regardless of what material you're using.
Yep.
Silk wrapping it and gluing it so it fits nicely in that clasp.
Yep. So to feed the pendant on here, it's just a matter of working it through. Nicely done. Thank you for working with me, pendant.
Yep, working it through.
Right? And so to put it inside the clasp, and I learned a little something about these clasps. If you get a little glue on the outside of the clasp, because they seem very perfect and like that glue's going to show if there's any little bobble, let the
Mm-hmm.
glue dry and then come back with a little X-Acto knife, and you can pick off any little glue residue that's on there.
Mm.
It's very forgiving, which I always appreciate. That there's a little bit of redemption. So I'm going to squeeze out a little glue, and I'm just going to go inside the clasp and kind of squeeze it all around so that I can see that the interior of that clasp is wet and has got a little bit of glue layer in there. Right? Set that aside. And I'm going to come in with my hardened, and everything is dry and hard now, just about. And I'm just going to kind of screw them together. So I'm pushing pretty firmly to get that wrapped bundle to go inside the clasp. But I found that kind of screwing it together did the best job. And getting everybody in there. Play nice now, y'all. Get in there. It doesn't have to go all the way in. We're fine right here. Okay, I got about half of that clasp inside, or the half of that whip stitched area inside. And that's just exactly what I need. Right?
And again, Emily, you used in the real one a thread that matched a little more,
Yes.
so if it doesn't go all the way in, and
Yes.
plus you're gonna
We're
stitch
gonna
over
cover
that anyway,
Yeah. So
so
we're
it
gonna
doesn't
do that
matter.
next. Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, we'll go back to peyote stitching. And I thought I had a separate piece of thread here ready, but I guess I did not. So
Mm-hmm.
try to be magic oven about everything I did today, but it wasn't quite.
Yeah, it's not always.
It's or I lost a piece of thread, which may be on the floor
Well, who
in its
knows?
natural state.
This is really fun. And with the temperature project, um, you could kind of plot this out. So you could do one for each month and somehow like do a color scheme. It would be, you'd have to kind of plot it out a little bit, but I think it's a cool idea. I love this technique.
You know, I might do a row, or you could do 3 rows, and it would wow in and out. Is that what
Mhm.
yours looks like? Well, you didn't change sizes, did you? You have all the
No,
same sizes,
mm-mm, mine's all the same.
right? So, and I can see that I should have put the blue one on this one, so I'm gonna do a blue bead. Hold on.
And there's a question that my mom has. I don't know why she's asking this because I think she knows the answer, but I'm going to tell her. For regluing rhinestones into brooches, I use GS Hypo cement, Gwenda. That's what I use.
That's what I would use too. But I would do a little prep before.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, now is tis the season of Christmas brooches.
Christmas brooches, like we're all wearing.
We're all wearing, I'm wearing mine today. You know, if you have to glue a rhinestone back in, again, a little X-Acto knife. I actually have some scalpels that I use for working with PMC,
Mm-hmm.
and they have very sharp blades, and they are a very fine blade as well. And so I use the scalpel to scrape out all the residue.
Yeah, if there's any glue residue in there, that has to come out.
And sometimes there is the back of the rhinestone has
Right, the foil. Yeah.
foil on it. I couldn't even come up with the name. Thank you, my dear Kate.
Mm-hmm.
I just could not come up with the name of what I was thinking of on the back.
The
So
foil.
I'm going to do a little peyote stitch. Let me just count from my one before. 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like 10. So I have a new piece of thread, 10 beads, and I'm going to slip it around.
And Janice, I see that question. I'm going to wait till Emily's at a stopping point.
Uh-oh, what question?
No, there's just a question about circular peyote. Don't,
Okay.
not to worry.
I'm going to do a little knot here, just like we did before. So I did about 10 beads here, and I did them all one color, and I pulled it up right near the end of the clasp, right near the end of that whip stitching. And I'm going to go ahead and tubular peyote again. So my thread is in between a bead. So I'm going to go through a bead, pass through that bead, pick up a bead, and skip a bead for this whole row around. So I might do 3 to 4 rows here, depending on how much you need to cover up. If your whip stitching is long and you need to cover it up a bit, then I would do it a little longer. But I liked the look of having one row of 8s at the end to give it
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of a little flair.
Yeah, some stability for sure.
Yeah, just a
Yeah,
little.
it's like a nice collar
Yes,
on the
yes.
end for
That
sure.
makes it look intentional.
And Em, you're a little out of frame, FYI.
Sorry. You know what I'm struggling with is
I
your
do.
focus and your
I know.
uh,
Focal range. Focal range.
focal range, focal range. Here's my last bead, and I'm going to go through my step up bead. Pull that up snug. So now my pass through bead, my skip over bead, and my pass through beads are much more visible, right? Picking up a bead, skipping a bead,
Mm-hmm.
passing through the next bead. That's much easier once you get to that 3rd or 4th row of peyote stitch. The first couple rows, first 8 or 10 rows, feel a little bit out of control. And that's okay. As long as you're doing the right order, you should be fine. Hang in there. Having something underneath it makes it lovely, gives it a little bit of stability. And so that's where your pen comes into play, right? Beginning
Mm-hmm.
a bead, skipping over a bead, passing through the next bead. And I will also step up here at the same time. Oops, didn't quite get through my step up, but here comes my step up. There we go. Picking up a bead, skipping a bead. So peyote stitches is kind of regular, you go along. Uh-oh, somehow I have 2 step up beads. That's not good. Oh, no, I don't. Huh. All right. I'm going to close off this row, change to, oh, I do have 2 step up beads. Something went wrong. All right.
Something's awry.
I'm going to pull this out. While I'm pulling this out, Kate, talk to me about your question.
Yeah. So the question was, Emily, let me go back here. Why did you choose circular peyote for this project versus other circular or spiraled stitches?
Tubular peyote.
Yeah.
I was following my reference that I saw, and that was done in tubular peyote. Bead. Oh, I think that's where I messed up. Something's awry.
And it's it's a pretty straightforward stitch for something like this.
It is. It absolutely is. Yeah, that's right. Probably could have had 12 beads in my stitch.
And then there's a couple of other questions that I'll answer here while you folks are pertaining to the repair rhinestones. So Mary was asking about the foil on the back of the rhinestones, and Janice is answering, the rhinestones are foiled to give them the shine and sparkle, and sometimes even the color, if the rhinestone is clear. You want to maintain that foil on the back of the rhinestone itself. If the rhinestone has come out and left the foil behind in the little crevice where the rhinestone gets glued in, that's what you want to take out, because the glue wants to adhere to the metal of the pin or the pendant rather than the foil. The foil might have it fall out, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so
won't give it a good something. It's
yeah,
solid.
it won't give it adhere. It won't let it adhere as much. Yeah. So that's the rhinestone question. Okay, and you're back on, and go ahead and get back into, if you can get back into frame as well when you have.
Unknown caller.
Sorry, someone's calling me. Let me turn that off. Everyone is here that I want to see, so
Right.
So we're good.
There we go. That's what happened.
Okay, so you're good. You're good to go.
Yep. Going around. Here's my step up. My knot is loosened a little bit. That's why things got a little hinky. So I've completed my rows. Can you see right here where my thread is open and showing? My knot slid, which tells me if I pull this back and pull it tight, everything looks much happier.
Yeah, there we go.
One more row of these 90s, also known as my favorite bead.
That's right. So while you're doing that, I'm going to add my camera in here, if I may. And I'm going to show you folks what I've got going on here. I have been following Emily's amazing directions.
Oh, are you making one too?
Yeah, I wanted to really see if I could, because I was so confused by this that I had to actually do this myself so I'd understand what the heck it was you were doing. And so now I understand, which is super exciting. So let me show you folks. I'm going to put my camera up here. So Emily, you've got a little bit of time.
Oh yeah. I'm just stitching in my row of 8s here. I'm almost done.
There. I'm going to share this. I'm going to add this, and just bear with me here a second. Let me zoom out. There we go. And so what I did, I listened to Emily, what she was telling us. And I tried to choose some beads that had high contrast to them. And I'm not a intuitive seed beader, really. I love to seed bead, but peyote stitch really is my jam. So when I saw that Emily was like, "Oh, it's just peyote stitch," I'm all okay, perfect. I'm in.
It is
So
stitch.
it's so easy, right? So here I started with my 11. Here's my 15s, my 11. I also did an 11. This is um the 11, the metal 11-aught that we have, the antique copper. Then I didn't have any true twos. So what did I use? I used a little shadow. What a surprise.
Oh,
Then there's an 8-aught, an 8-aught, and then I finished with the 11. So what I'm learning as I'm going around, and you can see I'm using my paintbrush as my little
holder.
holder here. Let me go in a little bit so you folks can see this. So you can see how I wanted my two metals to be close together. So my little shadow and that metal 11-aught are kind of close together. Let me see if I can zoom back in and get this into focus. There it is. What I also did is what Emily told us not to do, but I'd made the mistake, so I'll show you. See how I put my first two on, and then I reverse direction, just because that's how I always do peyote stitch. So this, my spiral should actually be spiraling the other way, but this first row is backwards. You can see instead of this shadow bead being over there, it's over there. So I just did mine backwards, but I'm not going to worry about it. I just moved forward. And you can see however many rows I have here. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 7 rows here. It's actually starting to
It looks great.
spiral up.
I like it.
Yeah. So yeah, this is just a little paintbrush that I found that I have, and I'm using the dowel end of the paintbrush for
It
it.
looks great.
Yeah, so we'll see. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how my color choices. I probably could have made better color choices, but I really wanted some high contrast so I could see each one.
You do you.
So I'm going to put you back on, M, if you're ready.
Yeah. I just got this last little row of,
Okay.
went ahead and did my row of 8s going around, and I'm just passing through all the beads again um, to stabilize them at the ends there, because this is a place that's going to get a lot of handling.
Right.
So the other trick I did, which most seed beaters and most jewelry people would say, "Oh, don't do that," is once I got my little collar built, and typically I would have it completely finished here. I haven't woven in my ends yet. I actually took a little bit of super glue, put it right on those wraps, and pushed it up over onto the super glue.
Nice.
So
So
it's
it's just,
now there permanently, not
yeah.
coming apart, not coming off. So I think using glue in strategic places is great. There really isn't another way. Speaking of getting rhinestones to stick into jewelry, there really isn't another way to get the rhinestones to stick in there, right?
Mhm.
So glue is appropriate at that point. Um, if you're setting a stone and you have not made the bezel the right size, and you say, "Well, just throw a little glue in there and that'll kind of take care of it," that's kind of a no-no.
Yeah. Yeah.
People don't. That's not where we want to go, right? So using glue strategically, and I think another thing that kind of comes to me a lot about glue is that really glue works best with something that's porous. You know, um, if we're gluing leather or thread, that's porous and it sucks up some of the glue and it gets hard, and that's appropriate. If we're trying to glue two marbles together, glue is going to be a really hard thing to glue two round things together end to end.
Yeah.
That's the best choice. So I think using glue strategically is really think about what you're gluing before you glue.
Yeah.
Think
And
about your
as we call it in the biz, Emily, chemical bonding.
right. I had a jewelry teacher in junior college who said there is no G in jewelry. We don't just glue stuff together. And well, yes and no. And he was a classical, like, trained metalsmith. So he was working on a different scale than we're
Right.
working today,
Right.
and with different materials. So if you happen to get a little glue on the barrel clasp, it's okay. Let it dry. Come back in this, like I said, with a little X-Acto knife and just chip it away, and it'll come right off. It's really because I already had this experience for you, so it's really fairly easy to do. Right? How cute! How cute!
That looks fantastic.
I know, it's so fun. It just we could do this on anytime you'd use these clasps.
I
Just do a
really like it
cover,
on the
you
clasps.
know? I think it looks really finished, whether you do the plain or the braid. I think on this one I used the two kind of opalescent-y ones. And use whichever beads you like. I mean, I'm not gonna tell you you can't use all the gold ones.
Yeah,
And
no,
yeah,
agreed.
up to you.
So, Emily, is this so the order that you laid everything out in?
Yes.
Will you show us some of your experiments maybe that worked or didn't work, or what is this? What I guess what I'm trying to say is, can we deviate from this order?
Oh, you can absolutely deviate from this order.
Okay.
I would keep the sizes in place, but
Mm-hmm.
replace the beads for sure. If you wanted to make this super delicate, you could replace the 15s with Charlottes and move the 15s to the 11s spot,
Mm-hmm.
and then move the 11s to the 8 spots. So that
Mm-hmm.
would give you the tightest, tiniest little spiral ever.
Right.
And it would be very pretty. It's always pretty to fun. It's always pretty interesting to play with scale. Does something look good in this scale, or do I need to go bigger? Maybe I need to use 8s and 6s with this, and some check 4mm
Mm.
to get big and have a
Mm-hmm.
really substantial piece.
So
Um,
essentially, you're grading up and down like a bead size
yes,
next to each other to
yes.
make so that you're not making too big of a jump
You need to
between.
have a little transition, I think.
Right. Okay.
Um,
Gotcha.
Otherwise, you're going to have something very blocky
Mm-hmm.
versus something very sort of more organic looking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was thinking about the spiral idea, or this idea for your temperature project. So you could use 11s, 8s, and 6s. 15s, 11, 8s, and 6s. So you
Mm-hmm.
break your temperatures down into not such a fine um, detail. So
Right.
you'd have from 60 to, or maybe you'd have from 40 to 60 would be one temperature. And then from 60 to 80, I don't know, there would have to be something in there that you could divide it by 4 into 4 groups. And then
Right. Right.
your tube would go in and out with the different sizes that you chose. You could do it all in one color and just do different sizes is another
Right.
thought to have about this. And
Right. That was cool.
then that kind of comes back to I'm trying to remember the artist who did this one. Hold on, I will open up this book and get you the name. And I can almost get her name in my head, but I can't. I can kind of see her. Suzanne Golden. Do you remember her?
Oh yeah, I do. Suzanne
Yeah.
Golden.
I'm pretty sure this one is hers. And when these books came out, they were looked upon kind of as Bibles. They really gave you a beautiful understanding and a beautiful, yeah, Suzanne Golden.
Will you show that book one more time, Em?
Sure.
Nice.
And this is Carol Wilcox Wells.
Yep.
So she has 2 books, Art and Elegance of Bead Weaving, and the very first one, I can't remember. I can't see it from here in my bookshelf. But she has 2 books, and
Mhm.
here's that other project. Here's the rest of that project, and I think they only show it.
Really cool.
Yeah, Suzanne Golden always was walking around at the bead shows in these colors.
Yes, that's correct. She's very colorful, as I
Mhm.
remember.
Right.
Those good old bead show days. One of
Oh,
the One of the things that I am having trouble remembering,
Yes.
just because I don't do spiral,
Is the bead.
is yeah, putting the bead on that matches when it's coming out. The bead that you're putting on matches the one that your thread is coming out from.
Correct.
I keep wanting to put the bead on that is underneath, if that makes sense.
It does.
And I've made that one mistake, but I just ignored it and I'm moving on.
Yeah.
Okay, so here is
Let's
the,
see.
let me show you. I'm at the, let me add this camera. So here we are. And I see how what you're saying is that it's starting to spiral.
Mm-hmm.
So it's starting to kind of move a little bit. So once you get that first spiral going all the way around, it'll kind of regulate itself, I think.
Yeah. It'll feel more stable once you
Yeah.
have a few rows gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did. It's so funny. Look what I've got my other colors in.
Let me see.
Oh, triangles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right. I love using the triangles for sort of.
I do too. I love those. And Ellen is saying Creative Bead Weaving is her other book.
Creative bead weaving. Thank you so much, Ellen.
Classic.
Also a classic. I mean, having those two books give you a huge amount of knowledge and a huge amount of inspiration and places to start for sure.
For sure.
I mean, if I was going to say get two books, I would say get those two.
I was going to grab, there was one thing, I got caught up in this. Emily, why don't you show a final look of those two
Sure.
while those are on and people can find those. I'm going to grab something here. I got totally into the spiral.
You're going to be spiraling around for the next 2 days while you have holiday time?
Spiral.
I hope you're going to take a couple days off, Miss Kate.
What's that?
I said, I hope you're going to take a couple days off for the
holiday. Oh, yeah. We'll be off at Christmas.
Yeah.
Or, I'll be sewing something, I'm sure. So there we are. Look at how beautiful those are. I wanted to share with you folks. Oh, Emily, I also want you to give people a sneak peek. It's sneak peek time.
Okay. Coming up in January.
You give a sneak peek about what you're doing next, and then I'm going to give everybody a sneak peek about tomorrow.
Coming up in January, when I first started with Beadshop, we did the Heart on Your Sleeve project. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, for some reason, and I think this goes back to one of my good friends who kind of was this way from the very beginning of time when I met her. I've always loved the heart shape, and I use it for some of my metalworking, and I use it in a couple other places. And I had this inspiration to make a little bead embroidered intentional heart. So this is coming up in mid-January, new project, a little bit of bead weaving or a little bit of bead embroidery. And actually inside, in between the two layers, which is different than I usually do my bead embroidery, there's a little intention stitched inside. So I stitched down a really favorite memory of my dad. And I thought this was a project that you could give at Valentine's Day or around that time, not necessarily, it doesn't have to be on Valentine's Day. That would be something that you were sending an intention to someone. And whether you were wishing them health or good luck or happy travels or whatever it was, but it was sort of the idea of having a little thought inside that kind of was intriguing me. So I did a all-seeing eye, right? The rays, and there's the eye. I used just 4 colors of seed beads for this one. So we're quite going the opposite direction of having, I don't know, what do we have, 12 this time? We're going way down to 4. And our lovely ultra suede is just so nice to work with. And so I'm developing a a whole page of templates that you can transfer to the Ultra Suede, and I'll show you how to do that and decide on the shape that you're going to do. And then I also came across something, gosh, about 6 or 8 months ago, and I did it right away and then kind of set it aside. But this is actually made from our waxed linen.
Yeah,
And
that's gonna be so cool.
that waxed linen is really beautiful, but it's a little bit thin. And I was looking to give it a little bit more kind of substance. But I saw this project about twining your own cords. And I'll show you how to do it. You can do it with anything. You can do it with scrap fabric to make ribbons for packages. You can do it with the waxed linen here like I did. And the waxed linen is especially nice because it's a little sticky, sticks to itself. But it makes a really great cord. I have a couple of cord options for this particular one, but I attached the cord inside and then went ahead and closed the whole thing inside using the that outside stitch to kind of give it a little bit of stability, a little bit more flair. So
Oh,
I do think that
it's so fun.
in a couple of different sizes, this might be fun to make for men or for women. So it's a little nice to have a project that you might be able to give to a guy and hang it on your windshield, from your visor or whatever.
Yeah, or you can put a pin back on it. Look
You could
great
do a
as
pin back if you wanted for sure.
yeah, be beautiful.
But it was just really fun to kind of get that intentional part into this.
Yeah,
So
I love it.
just a Valentine's heart. It has a little bit more of a secret to it. And, it's a nice way to wish someone well and to wish them a little good intention.
Yeah. Well, I have Janice's project for tomorrow.
Oh, cool earrings.
Yes, Janice has done the third Thursday earring kit
Nice.
for us. I am wearing one of each of these. This is a classic,
Mm-hmm.
1994 called, and they want Janice's favorite earring back, right? So these kits will launch tomorrow after the broadcast. Janice and I are doing the broadcast tomorrow. And they have the discs and the little charm. We're going to show you how to do some gluing. It's going to be a lot of fun. And you can see how great they look on. I'm wearing one of each color.
All the things 90s are coming back. Like,
yeah, I love them.
Wearing lasers, right?
Yeah, this is a power earring if I've ever seen one.
And broad shoulders and all that stuff's coming back. I love it.
I love them.
I don't know that it ever went away, but
Yes. As Janice likes to call them, those are her Leslie Stahl earrings.
Oh, for sure. Or Barbara Walters.
Yeah, BW. But Leslie Stahl, man, she wore those big, those nice big ones. I don't know if you've been watching The Gilded Age as rigorously as Drea and I have been watching it.
It's over for the season.
Yes, but the earrings that one of the main characters, Bertha Russell, wears, she is wearing like a big, like close earrings. Those earrings will be in style for the next 150 years, Bertha. Good job.
Did you see the necklace she had on at the opera opening with all the pearls and the spacer bars in it?
Yes, I did. And you could see the spacer bar, like the chain run right down her neck. Yeah. Yes, just like this. I'm going to have to make we've done it. I mean, we've done it like that forever, but I'm going to have to do one like that where you use the chain as your spacer bar to hold all your pearls together.
I saw her out of costume in an interview, and I thought,
Carrie Coon, yeah.
And then she is, night and day. She is a new person in her outfits. Yeah. And there was one, I think this season too, where they had a party and the husband is relaxing in the smoking room or with a lounge or whatever, and with some port or something. And she comes in and she sits down next to him in this big poof of dresses.
Right. And she has him take off her necklace. Yes. And it's layered. So she's like,
there's a big handful of diamonds that she's walking off with.
Yes. So she's still wearing one up here and she's holding her handful. I'm telling you, those vintage styles, I need to do a Gilded Age broadcast where we go back and make those vintage styles, because I'll tell you, the costumes, whoever, and I need to look it up. I was looking at it the other day. The story, good old Julian Fellows, bless him, starting back from Gosford Park, all the way through Downton Abbey, and now here to Gilded Age. His storylines can be kind of cray, but boy, is his attention to detail so good.
Well,
So it's
I
great.
was shocked about the lady who did the Brooklyn Bridge. I didn't know that story.
Oh, I know.
I had no
I
idea,
know.
and I thought that was
Oh.
it was so brave of Russell Jr. to stand up to everybody and say, "We're going to celebrate." So the story was, in case you guys aren't watching it, that the architect of
Spoiler
the
alert!
bridge
Spoiler alert!
has some kind of a stroke or something.
Yeah, he's incapacitated somehow, I
Yeah,
think,
and
and
his wife just steps up right into
yeah.
the position and does it because she has studied along with him and knows all of her stuff. And no one wants to acknowledge. They're saying men won't cross the Brooklyn Bridge if it's designed
By
architect.
a woman. Yeah. So it's
And
cool. I mean, good old Julian Fellows.
yeah,
He's shining the light on the women for sure.
I really
But
love.
it's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
the colors was good. The colors were great. And you look, that's really the time of when Charles Worth
Yeah.
was doing a lot of designing. And some of this, a little bit of jewelry history, and then we'll ring off because I'm so passionate about vintage jewelry. You know I am. That a lot of the jewelry that was happening from Tiffany and Cartier and the northeast of the United States in Providence, Rhode Island, also New York, Manhattan, that's where jewelry was really being manufactured. And when the dresses would come out, when Charles Worth would make this dress, the jewelry designers would carve the hubs to strike the jewelry. I mean, it was a whole package that you worked with. It's so interesting to see. So we'll expand on this because
Do you
I have a
see
lot to know about vintage jewelry.
you see the dress that the niece had on when she decides she's not going to get married, and the front of the dress is dark colored, and there's a panel down the front that looks
Yeah,
like
that
a
white.
tie.
Yes.
And I thought, she's the modern girl. She's the next generation, and
Yeah.
she's taking a step towards menswear influences.
Mhm.
It's a tie. It's
Mhm.
clearly meant to be a tie
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
going down the front of it, and it's super interesting to get to see those influences kind of spotlighted. And
Yeah.
if you're paying attention and you're noticing the gowns and how they're being worn and everything, just it just was really cool. She took it upon herself to opt out of a relationship that she was being pushed into and she felt wasn't quite right for her, but she was also teaching and doing things on her own and being her own person. I don't know,
Yeah.
it was really
That
cool.
costume really no, I agree, and you see the costumes from like, right now in that show, the year was 1883. That is really a pivotal time um, in uh, fashion, very much so American fashion, but also European fashion. And we have such a big twist that happens right at the 1900s as we start to go into the First World War and women start leaving off like corsets and bustles and things become much more streamlined. And as you say, menswear becomes women's wear. It's a really defining moment in fashion history, which as a costumer, is
I think it's just super interesting to see it in live action. I think we see a lot of photos, and we see a lot of maybe we see little bits of the beginnings of the movies, and people herky jerky walking around, but
Mhm.
having some focus on it and having it be in what we consider kind of live, that we're watching it and it's as real as it can possibly be.
Yeah, all animated. You see how everything moves, and
Yeah,
like you were saying, Emily, she was walking around with her bracelet in her hand. That's what she would have done. I mean, her necklace in her hand.
yeah,
It's so interesting to think.
yeah. No, it was a really good. I didn't realize it was the last of the season until I saw
It,
someone mention it on Facebook, and I was like, "Oh my god,
it was. It
I'm looking
was.
forward to it
Next
all week."
season.
Sunday
And
night
as we
with my
wait.
tray, my dinner.
I know.
It's
I
all
know.
done. The dogs are walked. Everybody's happy. We're kind of relaxed. Sit down with my tray of dinner and watch the Gilded Age. And I'm
Yes, no Gilded Age. We're gonna have to wait. We're gonna have to wait.
what am I gonna do?
Well, my friends, I will see you tomorrow with Janice to make this stunner of a pair. The earrings will go live after our broadcast, so you'll see it in the newsletter tomorrow. There'll be more about this. On Friday, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about looming because we're going to slowly start making our way into what's going to be happening for 2024. So for my temperature project. So that's the hint I'm going to give you there.
Oh my gosh, really?
It's going to be fun. And then I also wanted to mention, friends, if you haven't seen it, we launched some more. I'm going to grab it right here. I found some more cobblestones. Yes. So I found some more. I'm going to move Janice's earrings. So we put them in. When these are gone, they're gone unless I find a few more. But remember that cobblestone necklace I did when we launched them. And we have many more colors this time. We added a few really interesting Dalmatian jasper, which I love. And so I did kind of a color array of these. So this is a great fast necklace if you are kind of stumped about what to do with the cobblestones that just launched. There's
as an earring, stacked, those two stones stacked on each other.
So good for an earring.
So good. And statementing it up a little bit. We're all bundled up and kind of clothes without a lot of decorations on them. So for winter, so they would just be perfect.
And this cobblestone necklace is a great one to kind of wear as a as a set that's not too matchy. I'm not into super matchy. I love that Bertha layered all her diamonds together. I'm ready to do that. That's right, here and here. Drea is saying that necklace from last winter, this one here, it's linked on the cobblestone pages. So if you go to our just-ins, our recent arrivals, you'll see the cobblestones, and you can link right over to that project. I just strung it on Softflex, and it was super, super easy. Well, thanks everyone, as I said, for joining us. You'll see Emily again in January. Hopefully we'll be able to do something again, a little wrap up before the end of the year. Yeah. So Emily, really great. Thank you so much for bringing this. My spiral kind of goes with my cobblestone necklace as well. Who knew? What a surprise. Andrea is saying shop now because several only have a couple of strands left. So thank you all for liking. I love them so much. The shapes and everything are super unique. So, and I put my hands on each strand. So they're all so real good. So I hope you folks love it. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow with Janice, Friday on Free Tip.
Bye guys. Happy holidays.
Talk to you soon, Emily.
You bet.
Thanks, everyone.